My love for you has brought me out of me. My love for you has brought me out of me. My love for you has brought me out of me. My love for you, 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 my has brought me out of me. My love for you has brought me out of me. My love for you has brought me out of me. My love for you has brought me out of me. My love for you has brought me out of me. My love for you has brought me out of me. My love for you has brought me out of me. My love for you has brought me out of me. My love for you, 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 my love for you,
Okay guys, I'm gonna get started in just a minute here. Let me get a few things set up and then we'll go. Okay, that's weird. I thought I had my, what's that? Okay, that should be better. I hope, except all of a sudden I can't hear music anymore. Okay, well, whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna start. I have a Okay, so taking a look at what was just asked in chat, I have a little Google Doc here that I created that has different questions that have been asked pretty regularly, questions that I've gotten from people on Discord and from Patreon and just in the chat right now. So I'll be taking a look at the chat again some more. Let's see here, where did I leave off? How to create enemy AI. Okay, so Joe Lewis has enemy AI as a question. Let's see, what else? Does anyone know a really good pixel art? Okay, so let's talk about pixel art really quickly here. I know there's more questions after what Asako asked, assuming that's how you say that. There's a couple really, really good, especially if you're first learning. Like the old adage is, when you're first learning something, what's holding you back isn't the tool you use, it's your skill. And then you reach a point where your skill is good enough that the tool starts holding you back, and then you need to change your tool. And then once you relearn that tool, it's your skill again. So if you're new to making pixel art, the first thing I'd suggest that you try out is Piskel. It's free, and you can also download an offline version for it. Piskel is really simple to use. It has a really nice animation system. It allows you to control what the frame rate would look like. It has an onion skinning feature. I've had some students make some pretty good looking animations in Piskel, so Piskel is by no means a bad program to start with, and it's free. if you sign in, and you can sign in with your Google account, you can save everything online, or you can download stuff as PNG or download them as .piskel files and save them that way. You can even export them as sprite sheets, which is nice. So that's one free resource. Another free resource here is Asprite, and Asprite is, I think it's $14.99 for the most recent version, but you can get the older downloads, the older versions, 0.9.5, and that's free for Windows XP, Vista 7, and Mac OS X. They don't recommend that you use it for your professional work, but I have used it before, and it's 100% not bad. A lot of making pixel art good anyway isn't necessarily the tool, it's the colors you use. And for colors, there's a website called Low Spec, and Low Spec has not only tutorials but also palette lists, and the palettes that they have are usually a really good place to start. There's a few specific ones that I like. Sweetie 16 is really good if you're looking for a way to work with a limited palette. What else have I used before? That looks neat. I don't think I've used that one before. Mort, who's a YouTuber, has a pretty good palette on here, and so does Zooey. And then there's one that's like a combination of theirs, which is good. Anyway, if you're looking for color palettes, is a good place to start, because what can happen if you're new to making pixel art is people have a tendency to make colors that they like, and those colors that they like don't honestly always go together. So that's the thing to keep in mind. Okay, so really quickly here, NPCs to follow, costume skin changes. NPCs to follow has been pretty commonly asked for. So eventually you can check it out. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's good now. My background. So I'm a math teacher. That's what I'm actually. Well, I'm a statistician, but then I got my teaching certificate later on. I've been teaching for 11 years. About 5 years ago now, my school didn't have a computer programming program of any kind. They didn't have any programming instruction. So I offered to learn how to do it in my free time and started teaching it that, I don't know, I think that was 5 years ago. I think that was 2014, 2015. And then I've been teaching it ever since. So started as a hobby. It's kind of my career, but the only formal computer science training I have is I took a visual basic class a long time ago, Joe Lewis. So that's my background. That's why I'm not the best programmer, but I'm decent at giving explanations, because I'm a professional educator first, and anything I can do with computer science is second. Let's see, I'm just going through the chats here really quickly. Okay, so Eric Tai, yes, there is ways to do pixel perfect in Unity. That's something I added to my list of questions. So we can talk about that. Thank you. Found out it was 30 seconds back. What copyright? Yeah, you can use it. Magic C asked if I put any copyright on my code, etc. in my tutorials. If you can use it freely. Yeah, you can use it freely. The only thing I'd ask is that if you're using it for like another tutorial series, you at least send people back to me. That'd be cool. If I forget to, sometimes I forget to add the license to my tutorial stuff that's in my GitHub, but anything that's in my GitHub is free to use. If I have anything that I want to keep separate, I keep that separate. And I have a few projects that I'm still working on that I'm of course keeping back, but anything in my tutorials you're free to use. Michael, Benny. So there's not currently any plans to do pathfinding. A-star would probably be the easiest way to do it, but the problem with A-star and how A-star works differently than how most people would want it to work. Well, I guess it doesn't have to. What you would have to keep in mind with A-star is you need to make sure that your your nodes for pathfinding are the same size as each of these boxes, and that you wouldn't allow any kind of diagonal movement to make it look the way you'd want it to. Because like if I wanted this duder to move here, A-star would have them move diagonally, which doesn't look right. It doesn't look like what you'd expect it to be, even though it's the shortest distance between 2 points. Okay, sorry, I just saw a question. So like if you're making A-star or like Dijkstra's algorithm, you want to make sure that you're not allowing diagonal movement, in my opinion at least, to make these games like this look like you would expect them to. But there is the A-star project. Nope, star. Nope. Whichever one it is. Gosh, I always forget. A-star project. And there's a free version of it. And I think the free version is probably fine for anything that you'd want to do. It's been a while since I've used it. The pro version it's expensive, but I think it's worth it if you want to do something that is required. And plus this guy, Aaron Kreinberg, has done a pretty good job for the community. Yeah, no problem, Joe. That's what this is for, answering questions. Slumber Studio, hello. From Montana to Indonesia. Brackies does have a cool video on pathfinding, and Eric Tai points out that Brackies has a video on pathfinding. In that video, I think he uses A-star, and I think he uses it the same way that I would suggest, except he allows diagonal movement. Brackies 2D pathfinding. Brackies videos, yeah, here it is, this one. This uses A-star, I want to say. It's gonna play. I don't want it to. Okay, cool. It's not gonna play. Skillshare, yeah. So he uses A-star, which honestly is probably the easiest way to do it. Okay, so Mexican Fox. Followed your tutorials in Unity, successfully converted a game I made in JavaScript to Unity. Pretty good tutorials, thank you very much. Have you ever released a game on Play Store? I have, quite a few. What's the procedure and the costs? So if you want to release something on Play Store, you need to first have a Gmail account. You need to second go to, it's developer.google.com. And last time, maybe it's not developer.google.com. It's been a while since I actually went to this website. Publish on Play Store. I think it's a $20 play.google.com console. There it is. This is what you need to go to. So here you can see this is one of the games. This is how popular one of my games is. 6 active installs. It's a $20 annual subscription, or not annual, $20 lifetime fee. And that's essentially to weed out the bots, but Play Store has a pretty bad bot problem. You can publish whatever you want to. You just have to like fill out, like when you create a new game, you would go to, it shows you how often I've used Play Console. There's a way to make a new application. I don't know. I'll go over this probably in a video in the future. And you need to have a piece of art like for the backdrop on the store, piece of art for your icon, description. There's this like rating thing that you need to fill out, but as far as I know, no human actually looks at it. They just automatically give you your rating based on what you say it is. It's very automated as far as Google Play goes. It's much, much different on iOS, but yeah, so that's my experience. I've made a few games that have come out on the Google Play Store. There's this one, which technically wasn't published under my name. It was published under this guy I was working with at the time. It's a match 3 game about climate change. Let's see, I made an algebra card game called Hero of Operations, and I made a clone of Balls, that game that was popular 2 summers ago. That was actually my very first tutorial series. And then I've done a bunch of contract work on apps and stuff. So that's my background. So that's the procedure for Google Play. If you want to release something on the iOS App Store, you need to have a Macintosh or access to a Cloud Mac service, or a Hackintosh, I guess, if you're feeling like that, because you need to have Xcode in order to create the file for an iOS device. And then it's $99 a year for Apple, so they charge you yearly, and you're not guaranteed to have anything published that you submit. You submit a game, and then for them, or application, and for them they manually review everything. There's like this whole process, and it can take up to a month. For me, it's taken usually about a week for them to review stuff and put it up. Cody Hook, any plans to start a new project in Godot? Yep. So right now the code in the Godot Match 3 series is a bit of a mess. I was gonna start publishing more videos on that today or tomorrow. But as soon as that's done, I'm gonna make an RPG similar to Earthbound. That's what was voted on by the community. So the next Godot series is gonna be a 2D top-down RPG similar to Earthbound. It's going to be broken into pieces. We'll do a piece on the player. We'll do a piece on the world. We'll do a piece on interactions with the world, a piece on enemies, a piece on the battle system, and changing the world and all kinds of stuff. So it'll be another longer tutorial series. So we'll see. I'm excited for it, though. I'm excited to work on something other than Match 3 for a little bit. Okay, so I have a list of questions here. So pixel art resources, I already went through that. So let me strike that. Farming game stuff, this is a Patreon question. Oh, thanks guys. Let's see, what else? The different aspect ratios, this is a Patreon question too. So I'll probably go through this one and then the farming game stuff. A few of these are pretty simple though. So stretching on pixel art in Unity was something that was brought up in the YouTube comments, but it's something that has a really simple solution. In Unity now, in 2019.1, if you go to the package manager, you can get as soon as it loads all the packages. Yeah, I love Earthbound too. And Sprite is really cool, Asako. If you've ever used Adobe Flash, the way that it works with animation is really similar to the way Adobe Flash worked. Anyway, pixel stretching is something that was brought up, because you'll notice sometimes, let's see if I'm gonna dock the packages here, so I have it. If I hit play, I got compiler errors, but sometimes when you play the game, you'll see that like the character's eyes, which are 1 pixel each, one will appear bigger than the other, and that's because Unity's doing this floating point rounding in the background because it's a 3D engine. To force Unity to be pixel perfect, you can download this pixel perfect package, and it's just one component that you put on your camera and it makes everything pixel perfect. So yeah, there we go. And that was something that was asked on YouTube. So where was that one? Stretching pixel art on Unity. So I'm gonna actually strike this out, and I'm actually gonna answer that question really quickly here. Strike through comments. Where was that one? I have a lot of comments. I try to answer every comment, but I'm way behind on my comments right now. Pixel stretching. Hey there. To fix this issue, you can activate the 2D pixel perfect camera option through Unity's package manager. This is a feature introduced after the tutorial began. Go to Window, Package Manager, 2D Pixel. Perfect. Install and put that component on the camera. This should fix any pixel stretching issues. That's awesome. Good YouTube content there, I'm sure, me narrating it. Alright, get rid of this. Let's see. Just looking at questions really quickly. Mexican Fox, I mean, people say that. People say that kids these days are harsh, but honestly, it's no different from when I was a kid, when I was in school. It's really not that big of a deal. Plus, I mean, I live in rural Montana, so my class sizes aren't huge, and it's just a super small town. I think there's one stoplight in the entire town, so it's not, everybody knows everybody. It's not that hard to get a hold of their parents. Let's see. Thank you very much, PCREG. I don't know if I'm nice. I'm just myself. Okay, so the Patreon questions I'm going to answer first. I had a question from BRNDAN. He and I talked a little bit about this yesterday. Multiple resolutions and aspect ratios. So let's take a look here. If I go to, actually I need to fix something really quickly, and I think this is the same issue I was having yesterday, the Text Mesh Pro issue. So Window, Package Manager, Text Mesh Pro, remove. Sorry if my sounds of drinking are super, super loud. I know, that's like the last thing anybody wants to hear is mouth sounds. Okay, while I'm waiting for that to do that, let me answer us. Free coding resources. Alright. So, who asked about that? Was that Summer? Your background, not sure if you've already covered this, but enemy AI. Enemy AI. Somebody asked a question about free coding resources, or other coding resources. There we go. Asako had asked about coding programs. And I mentioned GDevelop. There's so many out there right now. As far as free resources, GDevelop, Defold, what else? Stencil isn't free, but it's nearly free. Yeah, lots of good stuff. Can you do one day a tutorial on Final Fantasy boss, like the final boss of the Minish Cap? Haha, very hard to do it. Okay, so first, Asako Gamer. As far as making a platformer game on GDevelop, I honestly don't know how long that would take, because I haven't worked too much with GDevelop yet. Wait. Why are you? Now what's the issue? I thought I just... Okay. Let's see if I can fix this really quickly here then. I honestly haven't made a platformer in GDevelop, so I don't know. I have to take a look. It probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. Thanks very much, Creek Hammer. I appreciate it. And a final boss, like, how about Unity? So It depends on how many features you want. So, like, if you want to just have a box jumping around the screen that's also filled with other boxes of a slightly different color, and that box is able to jump on those boxes and maybe wall jump, like, I don't know, 15 parts probably. When you start adding animations and other features and stuff, it starts getting longer the more extra stuff you put in. Good lord, I fixed this yesterday and now it doesn't want to work today. It's all stupid TextMesh Pro. Okay. How do you break down code logic and how do you find the correct functions and classes to import? I see you have GameMaker 2, Unity has more to it, but what do you think of GameMaker for our largest project? Okay, so Magic C. As far as GameMaker 2 goes, or GameMaker Studio 2 goes, with that you need to be careful because GameMaker Studio 2 is awesome because it's incredibly easy to start a project, just get up and going and have something working almost immediately. However, once that project gets large-ish, it can be really difficult to manage. The main key with GameMaker Studio 2, in my opinion, is making sure that you're focusing on organization. There's a few open source projects out there that you can look at. I think the original version of Nuclear Throne, which is made by, what are they called? Whoever those guys are. Nuclear Throne is made in GameMaker Studio, and that I think has an open source version, like one of their early Jam versions is open source. So you could check that to see how they keep things organized, which I think is actually a really good idea. Play that game. How do you break down code logic and find the correct functions and classes to import? So it's all a matter of taking what you want to happen and breaking it down into smaller pieces and then being able to do each of those individual pieces. I think I need to restart Unity here. So like, for example, the way I've talked about this before when people have asked me stuff like that is, say you want to add a health bar above your enemies' heads. Okay, well, that alone, if you were to look for like, how do I add a health bar above enemies' heads? It's rare that you'd find a detailed explanation on how to do something that's that big. So instead, you can break it down into bits and pieces. So first you need to make sure that you have an enemy health system. Then you need to know how to scale down UI so that it fits above an enemy and not as like a screen overlay. Then you need to know how to have your script, which has your health information, set that health bar to do something. And I mean, it's just each of those individual pieces is relatively easy to do. You could even Google search for each of those pieces individually, and then being able to put those pieces together in a way that works that's what programming is all about. Okay, so Lambier is the name. Lambier Throne early version download. Because I know I've seen it. Wasteland Kings is the original prototype. Wasteland Kings Lambier. So if you go to download, do you just get the .exe? Yeah, there was a place that I had found. I know it was like fine to actually get the .yyp file. Maybe I got it through like a Humble Bundle or something. Can you do one day a game like Brawl Stars? Brawl Stars is huge. Open source. Oh yeah, they did this. Flambeer did this really good talk about how to make a game feel good. I don't know. I'd have to look at it. But so, I mean, there's a lot of resources out there. I'm gonna mark this as being addressed, but if other people have more questions as we go, I'll address it, and I'll try to find out where I got that wastelandkings.yyp from. PC REG, I'm not ignoring it, it's just, holy cow, Brawl Stars, like, it's been a while since I played it. Last time I played it, they were actually using 3D models. I thought they might have changed back to 2D sprites though. So, and then there's all that network stuff. On my Patreon, so Dushan Z asked what kind of videos do I have on my Patreon. On my Patreon, I have videos that extend the Zelda series for the most part. I'm a little bit behind on adding stuff to Patreon, but there's video about pushable objects, transparency effects, so you can go behind items and have it sort properly. Let's see what else. I have a quick grenade launcher video I made for a student. Virtual buttons, so making a virtual joystick. And then I think I have another one on lighting. Hey Eric Tai. Asako, yeah, it does. It's just I forgot what I did to fix it yesterday, and then I broke it again. When you change a version of the engine that you're using in the middle of developing something, you're gonna have to be happy with having things break once in a while. And that's what happened to me. That's why Unity doesn't like force you to update your engine. Sometimes if you're working with stuff that like importing to specific targets, sometimes that will only work on certain versions of Unity, and if you change your version of Unity, it will completely break. And so I know some people have like a version of Unity that they use for iOS and a version of Unity that they use for Android, and so on and so forth. Pigeon, yes, thank you. You've left a lot of comments, Pigeon. I'm way behind on answering my comments, so no worries. Did you learn C# first? I learned Java first. What I did when I started that programming class 5 years ago is I taught a program called BlueJ, which is a Java-based development environment, and then I used Greenfoot, which is a Java-based game development environment, and then I went from there to Unity, and the jump from Java to C# isn't that big. It's a pretty small jump. Okay, so what do we decide? Oh, okay, so now I've got issues with, okay. Because yesterday I fought with this and I fought with this, and then the package manager wasn't there. I didn't mean to redo what I had issues with yesterday, but then I didn't actually record that video, so I wanted to check to make sure things would work the way I wanted them to. All kinds of stuff. TextMesh Pro. So, okay. Now, the two big questions here, like I said, the ones that were Patreon questions were the aspect ratios and the farming game stuff. Some people also asked about more detailed cutscenes, which I could probably look at, carrying objects, and enemy AI. Enemy AI is one of those things where there's a lot to it. Like that's a topic that could be a 400 or 500 part series and it still wouldn't cover everything. I don't want to argue with TextMesh Pro anymore. Alright, I'm just gonna, once this is done, I'm just gonna open a new project and we'll use that to talk about the farming game stuff and then the other stuff. One thing that I want to point out, if anybody is not super artistically inclined, if anybody's ever looking for a good resource for free pixel art that you can use itch.io. I or nobody, hello. PHP and JS for 5 years, and they started C# this week. And the way you import, play that game. The way that I do stuff might absolutely be strange, because I don't have any actual background in computer science. Could you be more specific about why you think it's strange? Because I very well could be doing things wrong. And do you mean like so Alexei Lapshin asks, how hard would it be to make a live system? Do you mean like lives, like what Candy Crush has, where you have 5 lives and then when you lose one, it takes 20 minutes or whatever to get another one? Is that what you're talking about, Alexei? Okay. This is not what I wanted. There we go. That was weird. I or nobody, I did see your comment about a tutorial series on an MMORPG. Man, those projects are so big. I mean, it's interesting and it would be cool to do, but man, those projects are big. Okay, so if anybody ever wants to find good assets, there's Open Game Art, but I actually prefer itch.io. If you browse game assets, you can take a look at the so popular, and it'll tell you if there's any cost to it. You can also search. Let's see, I want to look for farm assets. Pixel farm assets. I just want like ground and plants, but I think we're just gonna have to fake it here. So let's see if there's anything really good here. I don't want to pay any money, obviously. Let's see what Kenny has. It's been a while since I checked out Kenny's assets. Blood Dragon, you can absolutely expect more Godot tutorials. I'll try to get 2 Godot videos out this week, and I want to get to a point where because we're getting really close to the end of that Match 3 series. And when the Match 3 series is over, I'm going to start an Earthbound RPG series. Let's see. I think he probably has his hexagon buildings, but I think his roguelike stuff would probably be fine. Let's see. Oh, he's got that 1-bit pack too. I remember seeing him posting about that on Twitter. From Baba Is You, or whatever that game was called. Stop. I or nobody, yes, there is a Unity plugin called UMMORPG. It's a paid plugin, so I mean, I don't know. I don't have any experience with it, and I don't like doing videos about paid plugins. So, I mean, And Asako, the Earthbound series is going to be in Godot. The Zelda series isn't close to being done. There's still a bunch more stuff that people want me to do on it, so I don't want to have another Unity series active while I'm still working on the Zelda one. I already get complaints that I'm not doing enough Zelda videos. So, when the Zelda video series comes close to ending, I'll put up a panel. Okay, play that game. For instance, in PHP to import a class, you just import class name and then you have instances of that class. And what I see you do in C#, is you do class, then you use a variable like class.getMethod equals. I just find it hard to read. So play that game is asking me about the way that I import classes. Defining string seems strange. So for instance, in PHP, to import a class, this is what play that game says. To import a class, you just import class name, and then you have instances of that class. And what we see in C#, you do class, then you use it like a variable, like class.getMethod equals. I find it hard to read. So I think, if I'm understanding you correctly, play that game, it has to do with like the, I think you're saying that, like, let's say that I want to use rigid body stuff. So like I would do rigid body 2D, my rigid body equals get component rigid body 2D or whatever. And then from there on, I would do my rigid body dot, and then whatever property of the rigid body I want to edit. Right, and play that game. You don't have to be sorry at all. I'm just thinking about your question. So for me, it's a mindset thing. So like when you're creating an instance of a class in C#, you're creating it as an object. So like you can't just import the class and then do stuff to the class without having C# know specifically what you want to do stuff to. So I think of it like a container and then like a filling the container thing. So like when you reference a rigid body 2D, or you create a variable in C# that is a rigid body 2D variable, you're creating a container with the shape of a rigid body 2D. However, that container is empty. You just created a socket for that rigid body 2D to fit in. You need to tell it what goes in that socket. Otherwise, if it tries to get stuff from there, it's going to find it empty and it's going to freak out. If I understand you correctly. And Alexi, so quick description of how you would do that. Zoom in here. Quick description of how you would do that. You would have something in the background keeping track of how many lives a person has. That's actually really good. Keep something in the background keeping track of how many lives a person has, and like a maximum number of lives, because Candy Crush doesn't let you go over whatever it is, 5 I think. So the person would start with 5 lives, and then when you would lose a game, you would access that global, and you would tell the global to reduce the number of lives. When it reduces the number of lives, then you would start a timer in the background for 20 minutes to increase the lives. At the end of 20 minutes, you would increase lives. And then if you're at your max, you wouldn't restart the timer. If you're not at your max, you would restart the timer. And to have it go from when you play the game and like you exit and you come back and you've got full lives again, you would need to have something that stores like the overall time, and then read from that overall time and find out how many sections of 20 minutes it's been, and then use that to add to it. I'm going to call this Q&A 7/9/2019. Okay, so we're going to look at farming and aspect ratios. Michael Benny, I know you're probably been waiting patiently. So I'm just making a new version of the project, and we'll look at farming stuff here. I'm also going to be using the Unity 2D extras. Because I think the 2D extras is what I want. Let's download the zip. Okay. Play that game. I hope that answered your question. It's kind of a weird way to think of things, but that's how I think of them. Okay. Unity is thinking here. Holy cow, I just looked at how many people. There's 24 people watching. That's crazy. It's insane. When I do this on Twitch, I get like 6. Yeah, Alexi, I hope that was a clear enough explanation. I mean, it was kind of just the theory of stuff and not the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts. Hope the music isn't too loud. Yeah, play that game. This is going to be on my channel, just like yesterday's was. So, yeah, no worries. Get some sleep, man. Dushan, I think he was having... So Dushan was asking about properties of strings. I think he was talking more about the way that objects are handled in C# versus PHP. Jeez, 35. That's still crazy to me. I'm teeny tiny Unity channel, so it's interesting to see. Okay, so not loud enough, crank it up. Okay. Thank you for your... Okay, let's... I want the... I just want the tile sheet. Let's put this on my desktop then. I know. Thanks for watching, Jack. And Marcelo, I know. It's loud in my headphones. And like when I look here, like my voice is way quieter than that is. I'll go just a little bit louder. Like maybe, yeah. That's probably good. Alright, so I want desktop. Yes, hello. I want tile set. And then I also want the 2D extras. Put that on my desktop as well. And I think the 2D extras is a package, but let's make sure. What does the README say? Why did Calibri get my .md document? That's weird. Notepad. Eric, are you looking on Unity or Godot or anything like that? Let me customize. So I think I just have to... Yep, the music's non-copyright. It's using a player called Pretzel. Everything that Pretzel plays is non-copyright. I just have it on the upbeat station. I think the other day I had it on the chill station. Alright, so let's talk about aspect ratios. Eric, I'll be back with you in just a second. I want to talk about aspect ratios finally. Alright, so currently I have my display set to 4:3, which means that if I'm registering it on a display that isn't 4:3, it's going to letterbox in either direction. Now, almost nothing anymore is 4:3. I like using 4:3 because it reminds me of playing on my old tube TV in my parents' living room. But almost everything today is either 16:9, or some cell phones are even going to 18:9 or 18:10, which is super, super wide resolution. Now you can make Unity force itself to be like this. So in this case, Again, it's letterboxing. However, if in your edit, project settings, player, you can allow the resolution to be changed by allowing this resolution dialog to be there. That resolution dialog will change the way things appear, but it won't change it won't make things stretch. It won't change the proportions of things. The main thing it affects is the UI. So with the UI, when you add a canvas, Michael Benny, thank you. I'll turn the music down. I'm sorry, Marcelo, I'm not going to crank it. I'm going to go down to negative 25 decibels. Okay. All right, so when you add a canvas, the canvas is going to essentially tell Unity where to place stuff on the screen relative to the screen itself. The canvas itself generally comes as, by default, it comes as a screen space overlay. You can make it a screen space camera, or you can make it world space. World space is if you want to have a canvas that has health bars for enemies or your player, or if you want to have pop-up damage text, you would be using a world space canvas. Welcome, Jean-Noel. Glad to see you made it. So I'm going to leave the screen space overlay though, because we're going to talk about UI stuff. Then your UI scale mode comes into effect. So in this case, we're doing constant pixel size, which means that everything is based off of the size of my display right here. So however many pixels this is wide here versus this is what my canvas is going to scale everything towards, which isn't a good idea, especially if you want something that can be used on multiple devices. So you can change it to be scale with screen size. Now you need to give it a reference resolution. Now, since I'm looking at 16 by 9, I want my reference resolution to be something that pairs well with 16 by 9. I'm going to go with 1600 by 900. That's the easiest thing that came to my mind. Now you can have it match either the width or the height. And this little slider will, if you have it at 0.5, it'll match them both equally. 1, only the height, 0, only the width, and then anything in between. So now let's add some elements here to our canvas. So I want to do UI. Let's go with an image. Let's go to the scene. Zoom way the heck out. Now, one of the big things to keep in mind as to where Unity thinks this should be placed is the anchors. And the anchors are represented over here in the rect transform. The rect transform is different from a regular transform. Rather than telling an X, Y, and Z position, this has an X, Y, and Z position, but then it also has a width and height of the object and where the anchors are. So in this case, we have our anchors at, if I zoom in, 0.5 on X, 0.5 for the max, 0.5, 0.5. So if I move these anchors, which are these little white things, can be hard to see, what can be good to do is focus on those. So let's say I want, something up here in the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to place the anchors first. So let's see. And you can see these percentages that show up. And these are the percent of the screen width it's taking up. And that's going to stay consistent on any device that is using a 16 by 9 resolution. So let's say that I want my, whatever this is, my box. Let's say that I want my min to be, let's not go 0, let's go 0.05. And let's say my max is 0.25. Oh, no, that's for Y. For max on X, 0.25. Let's see, my max on Y is going to be 0.05. Oh, yeah, no, I did the right one. And then 0.25. And that puts it in the corner, so I actually wanted these reversed. .95 and 0.75. There we go. If you set them at 1, it's the full distance. Oh, so the percentages? Right, so when you make a new, let's start that from the beginning. So when you make a new item in your canvas, and it doesn't matter what it is, I'm just going to use an image, but anything that you make in your canvas is going to do this. So I'll make a new image. You have these little triangles here that are pointing towards the center of the object. In general, these are going to point to the center of whatever its parent is. Since this is parented to the canvas, it's going to point to the center of the whole screen. So if you grab just one of these little triangles here, or you can even just manipulate it over here. By default, this one started at 0.5 on X for min and max. Now if I change this, so let's make it 0.05 like that. As soon as I grab these little white triangles and start moving them around, this will show the percentage. So like that 6%, that's right next to my cursor. That means that I'm 6% to the right of the left, or not to the right, 6% to down from the top of the screen. The 4% that's down beneath, that's how far I am from the left of the screen. And then in between these two, it was 43%, and now it's 24%. And then from the 4 to the middle is 47%, and so on. So I want to think of this in terms of percentages. So I'm going to put my X max at 0.05, and, or sorry, my X min, and I'm going to put my X max at 0.25. I'm going to put my Y min at 0.75, and my Y max at 0.95. So that makes this box. Now right now, all of these left and right, this is currently, the left side of this is 670 pixels from the left side of the box. Alex B, thank you very much for joining. Okay, now since I already have the anchors placed though, if I take this object, Unity's UI system is going to want to snap it to where the anchors are. Now back over here in my rect transform, you can see that this is 3.015 e to the negative whatever. This is essentially 0. It's just floating point rounding. So I'm setting it so that this box is always going to be 0 pixels from the left, the top, the right, and the bottom. So like it's fitting the box exactly. If I wanted it to not fit the box exactly, let's say I make it smaller and put it in the center. Let's say I want my left to be 5 pixels away, my top to be 5 pixels away, my right to be 5 pixels away, and my bottom to be 5 pixels away. Now this has like a 5 pixel buffer everywhere. Now how that actually affects things in game is now when I move or change the size of my screen, this is going to resize the UI so that it's always 5% over and then 20% wide, 5% down, 20% tall. And that's, to me, that's really the key to making sure that your UI sizes nicely, is making sure that you're keeping in mind the percentages. I think the anchors are way more important than the actual transform stuff. So I'm going to set these back to 0, 0, 0, and 0. If that makes any sense. Hey Danny, thanks very much for watching. I appreciate it. Okay, so Brendan out there, who was asking about having things scale nicely, this is what I think the big deal is. Now, if I wanted to have objects that are inside of this, so let's say I wanted this to be like a background, I'll make it a little bit transparent, and I'm going to add some, like let's say, this might be a character portrait. So now all of these anchors have reset to be in relation to the parent. So I'm going to have this be 0.05, and then let's go like 0.2. Let's go 0. Let's see, that's 8. 0.95. And so, actually, let's make this bigger. Let's go 0.5. So now again, this box is going to want to snap to that. So let's say that this is like our character portrait or something. That's an ugly color. That's better. That 0.74 is killing me. Oh, okay, so... Okay. That floating point stuff, that can be an issue sometimes. Alright. Sorry, this is different than what you're doing, but whenever you get a chance, how to copy and paste them. Like copy a building and paste it anywhere. Can that be done? Michael Connolly, what specifically are you asking about copying and pasting? Let's do a slider. Let's put this slider. So I want this to be, let's see, what did I do the other one? 0.05. 0.05. And let's go like 0.95. And then let's do 0.4. No, let's do 0. Oops. 0.2, and then we'll do this 0.4. Yeah, that's a good size. So then this would be like the here tiles. Yeah, so do you mean through the tile map though, or do you mean game objects, Michael Connolly? Alright, and then for the slider here really quickly, just to make it look more like what we would want it to be. Let's make our fill nice and green. And let's make our background dark blue. So now if we go back over to game view, you can see how that's going to resize to be pretty much exactly where you want it to be. And the main thing here was focusing on where the anchors are versus on the actual position of the thing in the screen. Because if I were to go back to this main object and instead put the anchors at 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, oh, everything else is, it's still going nicely. Yeah, there's a way to do that with the tile palette. I'll look at that probably in a little bit. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But so this was one of the questions on Patreon. I was making something that nicely scales. So the next thing, Michael Benny was talking about. No worries, dude. Michael Benny was asking me if I could expand my thoughts a bit more on how a farming system would work. So I have my tile sheet here, colored. This is multiple. We want no filter, none. It's 543, so let's do 1024. Sprite editor. Alright, and then I think these are 16 tiles each. 16 by 16. Nope, they're super not 16 by 16. And it's not the offset that I wanted to change, it's the padding. So these are there we go. That's better. Alright, so let's apply that. Yeah, I'm getting there, man. I just wanted to have something super simple that I could look at so that I could kind of explain what my thoughts were with a visual aid. Okay. Okay, this is applying, so it'll take a second. Maybe? Okay, there we go. Alright, so what I want to do is game object brush. Why are you trying to use? I want you to open with Notepad. Okay, so tile map, grid terrain. There we go. This brush instances place and manipulates game objects onto the scene. Use this as an example to create brushes which targets other than tiles for manipulation. Oh hey, that was a better way to open it. Okay, so I'm going to create a new game object here. Let's just turn the canvas off. And I'm going to call this ground tile. I'm going to add a sprite renderer component, and I want to go back to my tile sheet, colored, make sure this is set to 16 pixels per unit. Let's apply that. Alright, cool. Now my ground tile, I'm going to add a new script, which I'm going to call ground tile. So I'm creating this as a game object rather than treating it as a tile, because the game object brush is going to allow me to use the tile palette brush with game objects. So let me open up that script here. And yeah, somebody said I should have a meme. I didn't have Visual Studio open. To start though, ugh, my computer is super slow today. To start, I was going to give a default sprite to this, but hello, Xtosk. Don't know if I'm saying your name right, but hello there. Okay. Oh, geez. Two versions of Unity running. That's not good. There we go. All right. Well, thanks very much. It's really cool to hear that you and your coworker have been learning from the videos. What doubts do you have? And yes, Michael Penny, Visual Studio's loading. Everyone take a drink. Alright, cool. So let's make a quick little enum for the state that the tile is going to be in. So enum. And we'll call this state. And we'll have this be, is it called fallow when it's just grass? So we'll call it fallow, plowed, watered. What other states could this have? Fallow, plowed, watered. I'm going to leave it that way for now. And then let's make a few sprites here. Serialized field, private sprite, and I'll call this fallow sprite. Serialized field, private sprite, cloud sprite, sprite, watered sprite. Okay, so I'm going to make a reference to the state that we're currently in. Serialized field, my state, and let's make a quick little method to change the sprite, which means we're going to need a reference to the sprite renderer. Private my sprite. So then we'll call this we're going to need to have change sprite, and we're also going to need to have change state. So let's have change state take an argument of the state. State, new state. And let's have this take an argument of sprite, new sprite. So all this needs to do here is just say my sprite dot sprite equals new sprite, and let's add a quick little check. So we're only doing that if my sprite isn't null. And then for changing state, if my state is not equal to new state, so we're going to change the state if they're not already in that state, then my state equals new state. Okay. So I haven't looked at chat in a hot minute. Let's see. While I go back into Unity and let that load. Okay. One suggestion. So xtosk ox. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. Says one suggestion we have is that when you're done working on a script, zoom out and display it entirely for a couple of secs on the video so we can pause and make sure we got everything right. That's a good idea. I'll start doing that. You might be early in the series, and if you are, you got like, I don't know, 65 parts of me not doing that, but yeah, I'll definitely take that into account. And hello, Philippe, how are you? Okay, so ground tile. Let's look at our tile sheet, colored. So let me actually decide which ones I want here first. So this is going to be fallow. We'll make this one plowed, and we'll make this one watered. And we'll apply those changes here. Okay, so those should appear at the bottom since everything else is colored, and then there we go. So ground tile, fallow sprite, cloud sprite, watered sprite, and it needs to know what the sprite renderer is. Cool. Now in here, in start, I'm gonna call, let's do change state dot fallow, and then change sprite fallow sprite. So if I hit play, I should see that change to the fallow sprite. And I did not. Oh, no, I should have. That's really weird. Oh, that's why. Good lord. So 0, 0, 0. Better. And I hate that Unity blue that the camera starts with the background of every time. I'd rather it were just grayer. Oh, and I changed that in play mode. Okay. So it's in start. Did I put it in update? Oh gosh, no. No, that shouldn't be an update. Thanks, Michael Penny. That should be in start. All right. Yeah, Philippe, that was one of the questions I had from Michael Benny. One of my patrons asked if I could talk a bit more about my thoughts about how to do the planting system that we talked about a bit yesterday. So in my assets, I'm going to create a new folder, call this prefabs, put my ground tile in there. Let's delete that. Now, I want to grab my tile palette, dock it down here, and let's make a new palette. I'm going to call this, just highlight everything, a geo palette, and we'll do grid size rectangle, cell size, automatic, create. And I'm going to put this in assets, tile map, new folder, palettes, put this here. Okay. Tile sprite. There's sprite texture assets here. Alright, so now I want to look at the game object brush. So custom grid brush. So this is an editor script. It should. So let's create a 2D object, tile map. Script is an editor script. I'm missing something here. Okay, well, let's take a look at the game object brush. Instances, places, and manipulates game objects under the scene. Use this as an example to create brushes which target objects rather than tiles for manipulation. Which is exactly what I'm trying to do. Game object tile map brush. because I've used this with the terrain system before. That looks pretty. Oh, Unity Learn. Yep, nope, no thank you. Oh, do I make it like a new tile like I do with, yep. So I want a pipeline animated wool override isometric. Okay, so I don't want a pipeline tile. Prefab brush, there we go. Yeah, so you need to create a prefab brush because it's a scriptable object, and I'm just going to call this, I don't know, planting brush. And then the prefabs, I want this to do, oh, wow, it even lets you do like noise. That's cool. Okay, and now tile map. I want to go to planting brush. Meow. So I should have given it a default thingy thing, but I'm just gonna do that and we'll see if it works. Philippe, hey, look at that. So we got ourselves a field here. So what I did there, just to show you Michael Benny, is I right clicked, I went to create brushes, prefab brush, and then lower left I chose the whatever I named it. In this case I named it my planting brush. And in the planting brush you can actually, so I could have like more of these than one, and I could have my purlin scale turned up so that I can have it be kind of random. So yeah, and then you can have like, so this is a game object now instead of being just a tile, even though it acts like a tile. So now you could have like this block of land that now your player can interact with like it's a game object. Does that make sense, Michael Benny? Anthropomorph. That was one of the last plugins I got for RPG Maker, a system to make plants regrow once harvested. Lots of timers and save states for when you exited the room. Yeah, Unity's is muchas different. But I mean, you can still set up all of that stuff. You just have to set it up yourself. Or I'm sure that there's an asset somewhere on the asset store that'll do that. Yes, now I just need to find the game object on the grid. You really don't though. So let me create an empty object here, and we'll call this the player. Okay, so I'll give the player a sprite renderer, and I'll give them a box collider 2D and a rigid body 2D. And then for the sprite renderer, I want to go to my tile sheet really quickly. And I want this little dude. We'll call him Farmer. And we'll apply that. Cool. So now 16, cool. So my player is the farmer. And his box collider, gravity scale is 0. Collision detection is continuous. Never sleep. And extrapolate. Freeze rotation. And edit collider. Size. There we go. Yeah, so the prefabs are part of the grid, but they're part of the grid as game objects. So like what I'm trying to do really quickly here is I'm just putting together just really quickly a system. Oh, gosh, it put the player in a weird position again. Why is it doing that? Unity. So I'm not even going to program a movement system for the player. What I want to do instead is look at the ground tile and focus on this. So if we look at our ground tile script that we've been working on, let's do void trigger enter 2D, and this should be other. And then down here I want to say if other dot. I know I don't have to do the game object part, I just like doing it. Let's say, I'm just going to hard code this. So if input dot get key down key code dot space, if my state is equal to state dot fallow, change state to state dot cloud, and then change sprite to cloud sprite. This is not the most efficient way to do this. Else if my state is equal to state dot cloud. Oop. Ah! Then let's actually just copy these. So we're going to say that the spacebar represents both the hoe and the water can. So watered, and we want the watered sprite. So if I save that, now this doesn't, like our player doesn't need to have any information about the grid at all. So exclamation position. Team-based multiplayer. Team-based multiplayer. Oh, man, that is such a big topic. Oh, haha. My player is. There we go. So. Oh, that's why. So I'm gonna grab all of this. And I'm going to put this in the update method. This is very, very messy and dirty, so don't be like me. Public bool False, false. Active is true. And active. So then back here, our player on layer 1. Hit play. Now if I look at the grid, I want to find the exact tile that our player's on. So, it's not registering the player. So I'm going to move him just a whole bunch of places. Oh, duh. Good lord, I'm an idiot sometimes. It's been a second since I looked at chat. Hold on and I'll look down in just a moment. So this one down here. Why is that not turning active? What have I done wrong? Philippe, you're right. It's cleaner to use a switch for what I'm doing here instead of using the if and the else if. Yeah, I have bad habits. What am I missing? Compare tag player. So let's say we should see like a whole bunch of debug statements here. Okay, cool. So now we know where the issue is. Oh, duh. Good lord, I'm so dumb sometimes. So I never gave this a collider, let alone made it a trigger, or gave it the right size. Good lord. Thank you, Michael Benny. You're totally right. And yes, Jean-Noel, you're perfectly correct. Cost of savings versus... Ray, you're totally right. I mean, I don't know. I've had conversations with people about why you would want to save such a small amount, but I mean, every little bit helps. Okay, so there we go. So now it's fallow, and now it's watered. And we didn't need to know where these are in the grid, we just need to know where the player is. So like if I grab my player now, and our player has this magic, I don't know, that stick that the player's carrying is both a plow and a magic watering can. Whoa! So everywhere the player went, because I'm not doing the on trigger exit thing. So like, let's see if I can get almost everything. And then, oh, almost all of it. I know you look up to me. I don't know. Sometimes I get upset with myself for doing things that are really silly. So I am sorry if I'm being too mean to myself. You can see the grid lines here, but I'm pretty sure if I put this in a sprite atlas, it would fix it, or if I used pixel snapping. Yes, it causes a flood. our little player's magic system. So, I mean, that's kind of the basics of making a farming system. The only difference is rather than having it be the player, you'd have like an object where the player is facing. So like if the player is facing up, you'd have an object here, and that's where you would have the player do it. If the player is facing right, you'd have it do it right. And honestly, like if you want to go super Harvest Moon style, I would even make it so that your movement system is grid based, so that like you're either in this grid, and if you hit right, you go to the next grid. But if you hold down right, you keep going, and then when you let go, you go to whatever the next grid is. Because that's one of the things I hate about Stardew Valley is in Stardew Valley, it's not, the movement isn't grid based, but everything else is. So if you want to try to pick this one specific spot, especially if you're using like a bad controller. Yes, Magic Stick brings forth water. Why can't you see, you can't see the tiles on the scene because I didn't set a default tile for it. So if I go into the ground tiles prefab, and if I just set a default tile, like, even if it's not one of the ones that it'll have, like let's say it's these spikes. Now if I go back to the scene, you can see where they are. It's because I didn't have a default tile in the sprite renderer. But now if I hit play, because of what I have in the start method, they're going to turn into grass and then plowed and then watered. So that was a super fast and dirty way, but the main idea was like the principle behind it. I don't want to look at those spikes. So I'm going to give them, I don't know, almost anything else. What is that? That is adorable. I almost hate hitting play now because all those little smiley faces go away. Why can't you see the tiles? Okay, I have to go start making dinner here, guys. I'm gonna record a Unity video tonight, which is gonna cover some of the stuff we covered yesterday on stream. I tried to cover as many questions as I could. I think I covered the Patreon questions, so that's good. If you guys have any questions for a future video, I'll try to do one of these once a week. Tuesdays will probably be good for the rest of the summer. So leave me questions if you want me to address stuff like this in the future. Otherwise, I'm going to start cleaning up here. So you can ask me any last minute questions you got. Philippe, as far as that dash thing, that's something I'm going to have to cover later. I don't have time to get into it today. So I'm going to save this Q&A here. Let's see, comments. Will it include the tutorial teacher puppet? Nice video, answer me in the direct. Okay. See, more knockback stuff. Sorry, should be oversized gigantic, yep. Jean-Noel, don't worry about the monthly stuff. I mean, even if you need to not be a patron, but like you've done it before, we can still do a one-on-one at some point in the future when you do have questions. Don't worry about that. Okay, cool. So, yeah. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. Discord's pretty awesome. I have a few outstanding questions on Discord I haven't answered yet. Anthropomorph, you asked me about dialogues, and I was going to come back to that at some point today, but then I got busy in my new classroom, and so I'll try to look at that tonight. But yeah, I hope everybody out there enjoys the rest of your evening. Have yourself a nice day.